Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've told the story before about how one time I traveled to London, and on the flight over, somehow a piece of luggage did not follow me there. And it literally took about half of my trip. I think I was there for 9 days or 8 days. And before 4.5 days into the trip, that luggage showed up. And in the process, the airline lied to me repeatedly lied to me about where my luggage was. And so I would be sitting in my hotel room calling the airline going, where is this suitcase? And they'd say, it is in London. Wait, and we'll deliver it to your hotel. And I would call 6 hours later, it never showed up. And they go, oh, your luggage is in Miami. I go, how did it get there? They go, oh, it never left the U.S. And I'd say, well, yesterday or earlier today, you said it was in London. Oh, I don't know who told you that. No, you guys did. And they would literally say, oh, it's in a taxi right now being taken to your hotel. And then later that day, they say, oh, no. Right now it's in Houston. And this luggage was traveling all over the world. It just wasn't traveling with me. And that's what kind of dampened that trip. But a man has claimed airlines kept losing his bags and he scammed them out of $300,000, according to the feds. And, this is one of those stories where, I'm surprised the guy got away with it to this extent, but anything to do with airlines and luggage always gives me the willies. Haley Fowler wrote for thesunherald.com, and the man collected at least $300,000 from various airlines over the course of 5 years by repeatedly claiming they lost his luggage. And that's according to federal prosecutors, and now he's facing prison time. He pleaded guilty to fraud in the Eastern District of Louisiana on November 23rd, according to court documents. The U.S. Attorney's Office said he faces up to 20 years in prison on each count and $250,000 in fines when he's sentenced in February of next year. The defense attorney representing the man, who's 31 years old, by the way, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The man's from Kenner, Louisiana, which might explain why he's being prosecuted in Louisiana. And of course, that's home to the Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. One airport I've never been to. Prosecutors said the scam lasted from 2015 to 2020. During that period, he's said to have used fake IDs to book flights and then file claims for reimbursement, often instructing airlines to send checks to his friend's address instead of his own. According to the government, he's filed at least 180 fraudulent claims for lost baggage, seeking more than $500,000 in reimbursement. At least 5 airlines were targeted by this scam: American, Alaska, Southwest, United, and JetBlue. A representative from American told a news service in a statement on Wednesday that they are pleased the Department of Justice is pursuing this matter. Spokesperson for Southwest declined to comment, and representatives from the remaining airlines did not immediately return a request for comment. I can tell you in the case that I was involved in, where my bag was globe-trotting without me, I had to point out to them that there was things in that suitcase necessary for the trip I was on to make any sense. And they said, okay, we'll reimburse you if you're forced to go out and buy like clothing. If you've got to go out and buy clothing for your trip, we'll reimburse you. I said, how much? And the woman said, as long as it's reasonable. And I said, what's reasonable? And I'm an attorney. I deal with the word reasonable all the time, but I need to know in the context what that means. And she goes, as long as it's reasonable, we'll reimburse you. I go, is that $100, $500, $1,000? What's reasonable? She wouldn't tell me. So went shopping, spent some money. And I never knew if this played into it or not. But when I got home, I sent the request for reimbursement on my letterhead, Steve Lehto, attorney at law, with the description of what happened to me. And they reimbursed every penny of it. But I always wondered what the cutoff was because they wouldn't tell me. But according to documents that came along with the plea agreement, the man was caught in March of 2020 trying to pick up a reimbursement check for lost luggage from the airport in New Orleans. The claim was related to an American Airlines flight he reportedly took in November of 2019 to Dallas. Prosecutors said he purchased the flight with a prepaid gift card, bought his bag at the airport, and went through security with a fake ID. When he arrived at DFW, he reportedly told airport personnel the airline had lost his bag, and he filed a claim for $3,800 in losses. So he buys a bag at the airport. But the question is, does he check it? Does he throw it away? What does he do? I'm not quite sure. The claim took most of December and January to process, as the man was posing as someone with a fake ID. In other words, he's posing as somebody else. But they went back and forth with American employees, according to court documents. The corporate security investigators from the airline were wondering how legit this was because the claim looked awfully familiar and reminded them of other fraudulent reimbursement requests for lost baggage. So something about what this guy was doing reminded them of a previous incident, and they noticed it was happening over and over again. American then contacted the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, which helped the airline coordinate with Jones to pick up his check at the airport instead of sending it through the mail. He was then arrested while he was filling out a baggage settlement check release form, the government said. When deputies searched the home that he shared with his aunt in Kenner, and I know there's an alternate pronunciation of aunt, they reportedly found 34 fake driver's licenses, 21 fake work IDs, 48 prepaid gift cards, and security badges for American and Alaska Airlines with his picture on them. Now, why he's got their security badges, I'm not sure. Investigators said the man went to extensive lengths to cover up the alleged fraud. He reportedly worked with some co-conspirators who were unnamed to file claims for lost baggage and instructed them to always say the value of the lost items was between $3,650 and $4,100. And I suspect that he figured out that an amount above $4,100 would trigger heightened scrutiny. In following up on the lost baggage claim, the government said the man generated fake phone numbers using an app on his cell phone and created bogus email accounts to match the names on the fake IDs he was using to pursue the claims. He's accused of tracking numerous claims on a spreadsheet that showed the flights, names of the airlines, dates, as well as departures and arrival cities. And yes, his scam is so complex, he's got to do a spreadsheet to keep it straight. Once it was time to mail the checks, prosecutors said, the man gave the airlines his friends' addresses to avoid suspicion. According to court documents, investigators discovered the man was arrested once before in 2018 after an x-ray machine at airport security revealed he was traveling with 47 credit cards under fake names and 36 fraudulent driver's licenses. He reportedly told the officers he had the cards for the purpose of obtaining promotional discounts for flights. During the course of their investigation, the government said they also intercepted a package being sent to the man from Hong Kong containing 22 counterfeit driver's licenses. He was charged by criminal information in September. Court filings show that. At his initial court appearance in October, he waived his right to an indictment and was released on a $50,000 bond. He pleaded guilty to one count of conspiring to commit mail fraud and one count of actual mail fraud. So this is a crazy story, but he's facing prison time, and he pleaded guilty to the fraud charges, and it involved at least $300,000, but he filed claims for over $500,000. But people often notice this, and I'm going to point it out in case you didn't catch that, is that the man engaged in repeated multiple scams over and over and over again, and he pleaded guilty to 2 counts, and it was conspiring to commit mail fraud and mail fraud. So it's down to 2 counts. Now, good news, bad news. The bad news is, of course, that that's a small fraction of what he is accused of doing. And obviously, if he'd gone to trial and lost on the full boat, he'd be getting a lot more jail time than what he's likely to get here. Now, the good news is that at sentencing, they can take into account the whole shooting match. So they're not going to sentence him for 50 counts or 20 counts or whatever it is. But at sentencing, he cannot say this is an isolated incident. And that's one of the things. And I don't practice a lot of criminal law. I studied it in law school. I, of course, passed that section on the bar. But I've been in court on many occasions, and I've also studied a lot of these cases. And what's going to happen, what's happening right now, is the prosecutor is preparing their argument for the sentencing. The defense is preparing their argument, and they're also preparing a pre-sentencing report that'll be given to the judge, and they will answer some basic questions for the judge, such as, does the man have a record, and how likely is he to reoffend, and things of that nature. And I can tell you that one of the best arguments, if it's true, for a defendant, is when a defendant can go into court and say, Your Honor, it's the first time this has happened. It's an isolated incident. It obviously will never happen again. It was a one-time thing, went crazy for 3 minutes, whatever, and it was just a weird but isolated, never to happen again incident. That's what we're looking at here. That's one of the best arguments you can make if you're pleading guilty to something, if it's true. But here we know it's not true. And they will bring out all of this other information to show it's not an isolated incident. So they're going to be able to say, we've got all this evidence that he did all of these things. And based on the number of fake IDs and fake driver's licenses and all this other stuff he had in his possession, we can see that he's like a one-man crime wave. And yeah, we stopped him. And yeah, he pleaded guilty just to 2 counts. But clearly not an isolated incident. And it's something for which he should get some serious jail time for. So keep in mind that most instances, there's going to be sentencing guidelines. And they're going to say for a particular crime, if you plead guilty, there's a minimum and a maximum. And they're given criteria. They'll say to figure out where you are in this range, you've got to look at the person's history. Do they have a criminal history? Is this the first time? Is this the second time? And other factors. And some of the other factors are these things that we talked about, the fake driver's licenses and how many times he's done this before. And courts can step outside the guidelines of a sentencing set of guidelines. They can go above it with extreme examples of things that allow it, or they go below it if there's extreme examples. But the vast majority of cases wind up somewhere in the recommendations of sentencing guidelines. So I don't know what the max is on this or the minimum is on this, but I suspect they're going to push him towards the max on the 2 counts to which he pleaded guilty. So man claimed Airlines kept losing his bags to the tune of $300,000 worth, and actually may have sought as much as $500,000. Haley Fowler wrote that for the sunherald.com, and Tom sent it to me. Thanks a lot. Questions, comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path.